I'm James Tranham, and this is my project, Turning the Contract Green, and this is for the module Applied Corporate Citizenship in a Global Age. I chose the Stanhope Estate in Ashford, Kent, for the basis of my project. It was built in the 1960s to house some of the London overspill, had a number of high rises, and become tired and notorious for antisocial behaviour over the years, so much so that the local media often called it the worst estate in Kent. That changed in the year 2000 when Stanhope was awarded a private financial incentive. This was £150 million to regenerate the estate, provide play areas, libraries, and to generally tide up the estate and make it a better place for the communities to live. In 2004, Morgan and Sindall were awarded a 30-year life cycle contract. This was for full estate facilities management. 6 directly employed operatives will work on the contract, with an office based on site at the Stanhope. So the current situation at Ashford is that it's a very small area that we work on. So it's only about 0.5 square miles. We're still using diesel vans to get around the estate, and quite often the vans will come back to us after 3 years, having only done 1,000 or 1,500 miles. So it's really important that the needless use of diesel vans is taken away and we start to use electric vehicles. I also identified that the charging points near Stanhope were very limited. There's a Tesla one not far away, but the others were on the other side of Ashford, and at rush hour this can be up to half an hour travel across town to get to an electrical charging point. There were also some operational and environmental issues I came across. So all of the vans had a diesel particulate filter. For short and low engine speed journeys, these filters block up and don't have a chance to clean themselves through. So we're having to send operatives up and down the M20 to ensure that their diesel particulate filters are cleaned out. This is not only bad for the environment, but also wastes some of our operational time. So some of the facts. There's 165 kilograms of CO2 per kilometre per van. Road transport accounts for 22% of the total UK emissions of carbon dioxide. This is a huge issue in the current marketplace. Climate change is always on the agenda of the politicians and business. If at a local level, such as Ashford, we can reduce the carbon emissions and the carbon dioxide that we're putting into the atmosphere, then that moves towards the Sustainable Development Goals as set in by the United Nations. I also set myself some targets, and that was to replace all of our vans at Ashford with green electric vehicles. And not only that, provide one electrical charging point for the community, not to just use during our period of time as contractors, but to use well beyond the next 15, 30 years. So the project's set up and some considerations. I had to consult with Ashford Borough Council to ensure that we matched their CSR plan, engage with fleet suppliers to ensure that the vans that we got were suitable for use, but also that we could get those vans. Select a charging point supplier that would build, fit, and also maintain the charging points for the estate and for our vans. Investigate the cost of the installation. Obviously, if the costs were extremely high compared to some of our current van costs, there would have to be a decision made on that. Investigate any grants or financial incentives from the government to do this. Consult and educate our staff. So we'd be taking away their traditional diesel vans and giving them new electrical vehicles that they'd have to charge up. So it's important we got a good positive message across to them. But also the wider community. So engage with them, have a big launch to make sure that they're aware of what we're doing, but also hopefully turn them around to the idea of using electrical vehicles. And creating legacy and sustainability. So we're creating legacy because these charging points will last for up to 30 years and stay on the same site. And sustainability by reusing renewable energies. So we got Ubertricity as a partner, and they provided some good solutions to us. So they came along to the estate meeting and they presented to Ashford Borough Council some of the options that we had between bollards, lamp posts, and wall boxes, but also ran through some of the charging options and the way that we can be billed for the electricity that we use. The key indicator was that everything was renewable. All of the electricity supplied came from renewable energy. So the Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals, and they're the world's best plan to deliver a better world for our people by 2030. All the United Nations member states have taken these on, and whether they're poor, rich, or middle income countries, they're there to promote prosperity whilst trying to protect the environment as well. So out of these 17 goals, I picked 3 of them. So I picked 7, which was affordable clean energy, 11, sustainable cities and communities, and 12, responsible consumption and production. So there are targets and indicators for each one. So for the target for this one was by 2030, ensure universal access to affordable, reliable and modern energy services. And the indicators to see if we're meeting this target are proportion of population with access to electricity and proportion of population with primary reliance on clean fuels and technology. So I believe that the indicators have been hit with this project. So I'm supplying a renewable energy source. So this gives people access to electricity for charging vehicles that they haven't had before. But also, the proportion of the population will now have a better reliance on clean fuels rather than diesel and petrol. But this is a new technology, electric vehicles, and a new fuel that they can get onto. So I believe we're doing some of those indicators with this project. So the target for number 11, which is sustainable cities and communities, is that by 2030 we'll reduce the adverse per capita environment impact of cities, including paying special attention to air quality and municipal and other waste management. So one of the indicators is that the annual mean levels of fine particulate matter in cities is reduced. We're doing this by taking away some diesel vehicles. Taking away those diesel vehicles means less particulates in the air at Ashford. It may only be 6, but it's still a start. And if we can encourage the rest of the community to buy into electrical vehicles, then that will further reduce the particulate matter in the air. And number 12, which is responsible consumption and production. So the target is to promote public procurement practices that are sustainable in accordance with national policies and priorities. And the indicators are the number of countries implementing sustainable public procurement policies and action plans. We've changed our policy now for a newer one to be more sustainable. We've been more sustainable by, rather than having diesel vans, we're getting electric vans in. And the community will see that this is a better way of procuring and shows a new policy for us as well. So the most important thing is we get a communication campaign out there to the community to show why we've done it and what the benefits of it are. So in 1991, Carroll set out 4 hierarchical responsibilities. This is basically a 4-part framework for CSR and the importance placed on each. It's built on profit. No business can continue if it's not making profit or is not sustainable. And if it's not profitable or sustainable, then there can be no CSR. The business must also comply with the law, and this is important again for the business to be sustainable. But the business must also be ethical, for it can look to be philanthropic. However, I would argue that ethics could be and should be the most important and the base for the rest of the triangle, as you can achieve economic stability, but that doesn't mean that it's in an ethical manner. And then in 2003, Schultz and Carroll redefined this model into a Venn diagram. This reflects the progression of CSR in the industries. It has removed philanthropic, which is now dealt with by ethical, economic domains to attempt to highlight the motivations for philanthropic behaviour, and focus on ethical, legal and economic. The Venn diagram demonstrates that the focused actions on one domain may lead to the overlapping of another domain. Therefore, you may be carrying out ethical considerations that actually end up being economic as well. By highlighting some of the descriptions of potential activities, I believe that my project adheres to 3 of the domains: ethical, economic and legal. This is highlighted in green on the Venn diagram, showing that my project is covering all of the bases in terms of Schwartz and Carroll from 2003's approach to CSR. So let's run through each of them. Economic responsibilities. Cheaper to run, therefore I'm not putting fuel into the vehicles, making it cheaper. There's tax relief on the vehicles. There's no vehicle excise duty to pay, and it's also subject to some of the congestion charging that isn't required. Less maintenance of the vehicles. There are no diesel particulate filters that need to be cleaned out or runs up and down the motorway to clean them out. And the less cost means increased margin, therefore making the business more profitable or more sustainable. In terms of legal responsibilities, the Climate Change Act of 2008 wanted to reduce emissions by at least 100% by 2050 and contribute to global emissions reductions. We're doing this. Climate Change Act 2008 is in fact a legal document. And by getting rid of diesel vans and putting in electric vans, we are compliant with that legal act. There's 5 yearly targets from the Climate Change Act of 2008, and one of them is emissions from new cars and the rate of investment in electric vehicles to increase. I'm obviously contributing with this project to hitting that 5 yearly target. There's also ethical responsibilities. Cleaner air for Ashford and the community living there. Community facilities by providing charging points. Education both for the company and community. So spreading the word about electric vehicles and showing that it is possible in this day and age to run a business using electric vehicles. And there's an ethical responsibilities overlap with philanthropic. We're improving the lives of the people there, as shown in Carroll's 1991 triangle. Very top was philanthropic, which is changing the lives of individuals and communities, and that's exactly what this is doing. So organisational challenges. What factors affect an organisation when trying to embrace CSR? There's a number that I found whilst doing this project. To start with, clients. So clients initially were reluctant. Ashford Borough Council said that it conflicted with their current CSR plan and didn't really want to make a monetary contribution as they didn't see merit working away from their own CSR plan. Profit. So the contract still needs to make money. The upfront cost of the electric vehicles was that more than the diesel vehicles. So we had to rationalise this over 5 years and also show that there was a reduction in fuel costs because using electric vehicles. Staff will need to make changes as well. They can be quite set in their ways and it would be a new way of working for them. They would have to ensure that they charge the vehicles overnight and also make sure they plan their journeys better as they'd have a limited supply of electricity to provide to the van. And the environment. So the estate has an issue with vandalism. There's a lack of charging stations around as well, so it could be difficult for the vans to find somewhere to charge. In terms of the vandalism, Electricity have put forward a proposal for an anti-vandalism cable that we may be able to use. So the results. Ashford Borough Council have agreed to the points, so they agreed to put them in and also to help fund these points as well. The order's been placed with Electricity and they'll be coming down to measure up at Ashford very shortly to ensure that the points go in the right positions and the vandal-proof system is in place. Presentation to the community is next. So in the local area, we're going to get everyone together to show them our plan and also to show some of the benefits of using electric vehicles to pass that education on. I also thought about how I could improve doing this next time. So I would definitely engage early with a client to get involved in their CSR plan. They design it every year, they go through it and review it. If Morgan Sindall can be involved at that point, we can have a better effect on what we do in the community by having a joint approach rather than just a single approach. Create economies of scale by identifying larger projects. If I can get other clients involved, then we can buy cheaper from Electricity and supply more points for less money. I will get the community engagement groups and the residents committees involved early as well. This means that they can shape the way the projects go, and also if I was doing it again with electric vehicles, they could point out to me where they would want the electrical vehicle points. And to improve an earlier development of a vandal-proof charging system, which I hadn't considered when I first started the project. That was my project for turning a contract green. Thank you for listening.